Welcome back to CMST News. I'm Stone Winchester. Today's main story, microtransactions in video games. Does the ability to buy things with real money in virtual worlds provoke gambling-like tendencies in children? We met with Michael Michaels, a frustrated parent who is one of many who has become victim to the rising issue of their children spending hundreds of dollars on in-game purchases on their credit cards. Here's what he had to say.
I'm outraged. My son, last month, he spent $500 on that night for it. It's irresponsible. The video game industry is... I can't.
We are pleased to have a few faces with us today to talk about this issue. First, we welcome Michael Michaels, whose son has spent absorbent amounts of his father's money on outfits for his virtual characters. Mr. Michaels, can you tell us a little bit about your position in this situation as a parent?
First and foremost, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Winchester. As you know, my son has spent $500 last month on video games, and he claimed that he had to do this because all of his friends had bought the same skins and he had to have it too. It seems that these video game companies are creating all these skins to entice all these kids to spend all of their parents' money. I honestly think this needs to be regulated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michaels. We also welcome Kai Pinkman, VP of Public Relations and Marketing for Epic Games. Mr. Pinkman, what do you have to say about testimonies like that of Mr. Michaels, whose child is susceptible to this kind of predatory advertising and frankly don't know any better?
Mr. Michael, I am so sorry to hear what happened to you, but at the same time, I am not so sorry. So firstly, our video game players need to be at least 18 years old of age to purchase microtransaction. And as a video game developing company, we only have the responsibility to provide players with the best video game experience ever. And as parents, it's your own responsibility to hold your kid accountable and your business to educate your kid. Kids nowadays are not that vulnerable. They know what they want, and as adults, we should give them what they want. At the end of the day, our mission is to make sure that we provide the best quality video games to players, not to educate them on how to spend money. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pinkman. And finally, we have with us Dr. James Davidson, a child behavioral psychologist. His expertise and research has been in children and their hyperstimulation in video games. Dr. Davidson, what can you tell us about the state of children and their interactions with the purchasing power in video games?
Well, Stone, we've come to learn that children are understood as both vulnerable and as learners. Advertisers have consistently targeted children at younger and younger ages, fighting off systems of regulation in the process to maintain their profits. Children represent themselves through media objects and participatory culture, but when they become able to identify themselves through purchases within those media objects, it becomes a matter of how these kids are being taken advantage of. They don't know any better, and they can't comprehend how serious the consequences from an addictive behavior within an addictive behavior is, like gambling in a video game.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davison, as well as Mr. Pinkman and Mr. Michaels. We've heard a lot today about the contemporary repercussions from the absence of any regulation of advertising of purchases in video games, especially those targeting children. On behalf of CMST News, I'm Stone Winchester. Stay scholarly, McMaster.